Hey everyone, this is John at LiquidHaus. This week's video is going to be a little bit different than what I've been doing before. This is going to be the first of many little enthusiast discussions with my friends. Today we have my buddy Ross, who I met at Zydax when I was working there. Ross, what can you tell me about this system and how long have you had it and all that stuff? Give me the rundown.
Well, I can tell you when I started building the system. I started building it around a year and a half ago. So this was a case that I've been looking at for a really long time, and
what kind of case is it?
So it's a lian-li PC V1000 LB. It's a special edition case, so limited quantity. Lian-li likes to do a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm really digging it. I really like it.
So I really love the style of lian-li cases. I think they look really elegant. They're simple. They're not super flashy. They're not just like crazy over the top, because you get a lot of cases out there that are just ridiculous. And I mean, to each their own, but for me personally, like, I just really like the aesthetic of these. As far as this case, I wanted something that was unpainted on the inside, like just exposed aluminum, just bare aluminum.
Yeah, the raw is awesome, man. You don't see that anymore at all. So
it's more of an old school thing, and a lot of people don't like that, but the reason I like it personally is because it doesn't eat up the color of the system. Like, if you have lighting in your case, it just kind of reflects, and it just helps like with the entire theme of the system. I feel like I've never seen an open loop water cooling system or anything super over the top in this case. Number one, I thought it would be unique in the fact that I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, man, doing something different is my forte. You know, you got to stand out and be different.
Absolutely.
So I really respect that Ross went with the case choice that he did, especially with an open loop. Because I personally haven't even seen an open loop in this case before either.
Yep.
So
it's not common at all.
Yeah, and we actually put this loop together at a LAN when we were both working at Zydax last year.
Yep.
And it was pretty fun. Everyone else is playing video games in the big room, and we're in a smaller room just putting together a PC, water cooling it.
Yep.
So that was fun. That was good times. So what kind of crazy hardware you got in here? This thing looks really good, by the way. I'm really digging the UV green, the UV lights everywhere, and the purple. These RGBs on the Asus board and cards. So what are we looking at right now?
So I'll go over several of the components. The motherboard is a Rampage 5 10th edition. We have an i7 5930K that's overclocked to 4.6 gigahertz on 1.26 volts. So
yeah, that's a golden chip right there.
Yep, and it's
I wish I could get to that.
It's not bad at all. It does really good. That's my stable everyday clock, so that's 100% stable. It can pass ADA and Prime and all of that stuff with flying colors. So that's the i7. Let's see, so I've got 32 gigabytes of Elixir memory. You probably don't hear that much.
Yeah, these sticks are impressive, my friend.
They're definitely unique.
I've barely seen these sticks out in the wild, especially in a system like this, you know what I mean?
They're not common at all.
Yeah.
They're not common at all, so moving on from that, for storage in this system, I have an Intel SSD 6 NVMe drive, so it's the 512 gigabyte NVMe. Reason I went with that is just bang for a buck, really. I was gonna possibly go with a 950 Pro or 960 Pro, but
pushing the wallet, man.
Yeah, it gets, and I mean, not to say I didn't spend much on this system. Obviously, I did. $600 motherboard, but it just didn't matter as much to me. It wasn't as much of a thing. That's pretty much it for storage. I'd like to incorporate like a 4 terabyte Western Digital Black for mass storage or something like that. Games are getting huge these days.
Yeah,
so
man.
It's like, I'll install, 3 new games that are 80 gigabytes a pop, and it's like this drive's like almost full. So I'm just like, okay, like, gotta do something about this eventually, but for now, I don't play a whole lot of new titles, so not a huge deal. So for the cards, for the GPUs, I have 2 Strix 1070s. They're the overclock models, the OC models. And the reason I went with those, honestly, I don't play any super new demanding titles, to be honest. I play a lot of older titles, but I mean, I love the aesthetic of a multi-GPU setup a lot. Like, that was something that I had never really done before. So it was something kind of new and exciting that I could sink my teeth in. Like, getting this case and starting to piece together some of the hardware and stuff like that, I was like, I gotta like go multi-GPU. I want this thing to be kind of over the top, because
yeah, man, you gotta do it for the aesthetics.
Exactly. And I mean, it may sound silly to a lot of you viewers out there, and I mean, I know a lot of you are against SLI, but the way I view SLI is beneficial if a lot of the games that you play are SLI compatible. Like with me personally, I would say easily 95% of the games that I play on a day-to-day basis and everything else is 100%. It scales really well with SLI, has great SLI support. So for me, SLI makes a lot of sense. It may not make sense to you if you're playing something newer like Doom on Vulkan API. No SLI support. Nope. So I mean,
same with DirectX 12 too. I mean,
it's true.
Because you're probably playing DirectX 10 and 11 games. And so those are wide.
And even a lot of those games can run in DirectX 11.
Yeah.
So like Battlefield 1 and stuff, it can run in 12 or 11. So I actually run it in 11. It doesn't look very visually different, but obviously frame rates, I mean, it's ridiculous.
I agree, because with my 1080, I put it into DirectX 12 because you can do that with Battlefield 1. And you look at it and like, I guess trees look more lush. I think, maybe.
Because back in the den, the jumps were more substantial. It was like DirectX 9 to 10 was like night and day.
Yeah, it was huge. It was like almost a joke.
It was ridiculous. So back then, and it's like back then, you know, you were going from Windows XP to Vista just to have DirectX 10 compatibility because of the difference that it actually gave you. But now it's not so much of a thing. There's still differences, but it's a lot more subtle. It isn't like huge leaps anymore. So that's for the GPUs. Let's take a look. So we've got.
Tell me about these brackets, man. You gotta tell me about these brackets.
Yeah.
These things are intense. They match the system so well, especially with these strict
Just
cards.
a neutral color, just something simple.
They look really cool.
So those are actually made by a company called Atlas. And those are just support braces. That's all you type in, just Atlas support brace. I've seen these kind of floating around on the internet before. I've never really seen any systems in person that had any sort of support brace like that for the GPUs. Primary reason I went with those is I do move this machine around a lot. I go to a lot of LAN parties and stuff like that. And the less stress I can have on the motherboard, the better. Because this is a really nice board and I spent a lot of money on this board. The last thing I want to do is snap a lane off of the board. So moving on from that.
Let's talk about the cooling.
Yeah, so the water cooling stuff, a lot of coolant stuff, like the reservoir body and a lot of the bracketing and stuff like that is from coolants. The pump is from a company called Watercool. So, and then...
Watercool.
Yep, so he actually recommended that. He helped me piece a lot of this stuff together. We were doing measurements and stuff all night because I wanted to make sure everything was going to fit. I'm someone that...
Yeah, we had many late nights at Zydax preparing this thing.
Yep,
it was fun.
Skype sessions and all sorts of stuff.
It was fun, man.
So, I mean, a lot of people, they like to rush to the finish line and just get something done, like, instantaneously. I'm patient. Like, I take my time. And I want to make 110% sure that everything's going to fit properly and everything's going to work properly before I pull the trigger and spend hundreds of dollars on stuff that could possibly not even work.
Right.
So,
unfortunately, that does happen.
It happens a lot.
That's the risk we take. It
happens a lot. And so from that, the fittings are all EK. They're just the basic rotary fittings from EK. They're a black nickel color. On the radiator, so this is a 60mm 360 from a company called AlphaCool.
Yeah, it's the AlphaCool UT60 radiator, the same radiator that I put in Brandon's system last week. So, and I know you're digging the performance with
Oh, absolutely.
Especially on that
it's stupid. Man. It's stupid overkill for a CPU loop. I know, but I wanted something to just fill up the front end of the case. This case has a lot of room in the front end, and usually, so normally it comes with a lot of 3.5-inch like hard drive bays and stuff like that, which are all removable.
A RAID monster.
Yep, so I mean it has a whole bunch of those in the front. I pulled all those out, and there's just like a lot of space. I was like, okay, how can I fill this up? And I was looking at monster rads and all that, but I also wanted just like a super fat reservoir. So I went with an 80mm reservoir, so this is 200 by 80. So it's a really big reservoir. You do not see this reservoir.
Yeah, I rarely ever see it. And it matches the system well. I feel like it fills it up perfectly. It still leaves a little bit of room, but I feel like that's the correct
It's not pinched.
Right, it's not pinched. It's still not open. It's perfect, especially with the soft tubes. Okay, so I got a question for you.
Sure.
Why did you go with soft tube versus rigid tube? Because that's quite the debate nowadays. A lot of people are going with rigid tube.
Yep.
It's just fancy, but it's a little bit more expensive. It's a little bit more delicate, which is why I go into depth about those Monsoon EV2 fittings last week's video.
Yes.
But from your perspective, why did you go with soft tube versus rigid tube for your system?
For me, in this particular application, I prefer the aesthetic of a soft tube system. Just personal preferences, really. I prefer, if I was blocking everything in this system, like let's say I were to block memory, GPUs, like everything, I would probably go hard tube, just because it would almost look too busy with soft tube. Whereas hard tube, you can just, I mean, look at John's system. Like, you can make everything look really good if you coordinate it correctly.
Right, if you were to imagine all those blocks in my system with soft tube,
it'd be a little bit busy.
Right,
It'd be a little bit busy. In your last video with the 909 loop and stuff like that, I mean, that case has a lot less open space.
Yeah.
So you can justify rigid tube or something like that. But like I said, I think for this specific application where it's just this big open box, you know, it's like, I feel like it fits the application. Another thing I like about soft tube is that it's more forgiving. So it's less likely, it's more prone to like leaks or whatever. It's less likely to leak, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
So like if I take this to a LAN party or something like that, you know, if I bump something, it's not gonna leak. Not to say that rigid will, but it's rigid is more likely to leak than soft.
Right. Yeah, so, we actually had an incident at that same LAN that we rebuilt yours, or
like December or something like that.
I took my system to a LAN, and it's a Thermaltake W100, so it's massive. It's the biggest case I've ever built in myself. And apparently on the ride there, one of the mounts for my reservoir got a little loose and fell. And it didn't fall towards like the outside of the case because it's an open air case. Yeah, it fell straight down. And luckily my rigid tube fittings, those monsoon fittings, held the reservoir in place as it fell. So it fell straight down, and the tube just went, and so it kept the seal. And actually only leaked about like 4 drops, but we were able to get the system or the reservoir back in place, got it mounted, torqued everything down correctly. Yeah, everything was solid. I didn't really have to mess with anything, but you know, if it was soft tube, that leak, those drops wouldn't even have been there. You know, like it's a lot more forgiving.
It is very forgiving, and also if you want to make changes to your loop, it's just easier to do so. You don't have to completely recalculate how you're going to do your bends and everything. It's pretty easy. It's just like, I'll chop this a little bit shorter, run it here instead.
Right.
So it makes it a little bit more forgiving for upgrading and changes in the future. So that's another thing I love about it.
So tell me about the Aqua Computer goodness that you got in your system right now.
Yeah, so this is a 5 1/4 inch drive bay Aquero. So it's made by Aqua Computer, which you just stated. They're a German company, and there's a lot of different controllers on the market. There's Lamtrons, there's a lot of great options out there. But something unique about this is you are able to control everything through software. And when I mean everything, I mean everything. Like
That's really impressive.
You can have you know, tons of sensors plugged in to measure things like coolant temperature and things like that. So if you have a system that has nothing but components in a loop, you have nothing that's air cooled, you can control the fan RPM based on coolant temperature. So there's a lot of things you can do with this, and it'll work for anything that I do with this system in the future. So that was the main reason that I went with that unit.
Yeah, man, like if you were to take that out and look at the back of the PCB, like it is so complex, compact. You look at it, you're like, oh my god, there's so many headers.
VRMs. And
everything. It's crazy, man. Like there's a block out for the back of these things because they get so hot. Because you have pretty much the whole system plugged into this thing, and it becomes like the brain for monitoring the entire system.
And it's got its own memory and everything.
Yeah,
it stores data and everything.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I'm pretty jealous. I would want to get my hands on one of these one day. I'm just rocking a simple Lamtron because
it works.
It works, but this is like next level monitoring. I'm a huge fan of this. I love Aqua Computer. I love these German companies, man. They're pumping out the best stuff in my opinion.
Yep.
All right, Ross, well, I really appreciate your time. This is an awesome looking system. Thanks for coming in and letting me interview you. If you can, subscribe, like my video, share if you can, spread the word out. I really appreciate you guys. Thanks.